Welcome to Your County on Community 7 Television. I'm Veis and I'm your host. Each month we look at a different aspect of what's going on in Yellowstone County. This month we're very lucky to have Scott Twito with us. Scott is the Yellowstone County Attorney. Scott, thanks for joining us.
You bet. My pleasure.
All right. Well, we're going to dig into the Yellowstone County Attorney's Office. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about your background. Did you grow up here in the area? Did you come to the area? Tell us about your background a little bit.
I'm a Billings kid. I grew up here. My parents moved out here from Minnesota when I was 3 years old, so I don't even remember. Went to Billings West High, go Bears, went away to college and law school and came back.
All right. And where did you go to law school at?
I went to the University of Denver.
Oh, okay. All right. That's kind of interesting because I think a lot of the folks in Montana have all went to U of M, yeah?
Yeah, I was just a Billings kid that went away to college and I took a break before I went to law school. I actually went and worked out in Washington, D.C. I worked in Washington, D.C. for United States Senator Conrad Burns. And then ended up working for a national committee for a period of time, and then I realized, boy, I didn't like Washington, so I got the heck out of there. And actually went to work as a lift operator in Vail, Colorado, and that's what ultimately led me to law school in Denver.
Well, I think lift operator is much better than attorney, isn't it?
Looking back on that, especially when the days are rough, I miss the days of just shoveling snow and fixing the chairlift.
That's absolutely. What drew you to law school? Did you kind of always know you were going to go, or did something happen to say, this is where I want to go?
I wouldn't say when I graduated from college that I was going to go to law school, but it was a decision that I made relatively quickly. I realized that I wanted something more, and I thought law school had always appealed to me, and ultimately criminal law really appealed to me. I have a little bit of a science background in college, and I was thinking I was going to be a forensic scientist, and being a prosecutor, you work with forensic scientists all the time, so that's kind of how I sort of took off.
All right. So you went to school in Denver, and did you come right back to Billings after that, or did you move around after that as well?
Not only that, my first internship was with the Yellowstone County Attorney's Office when I was still in law school, so I started the connection with the County Attorney's Office during my time in law school.
So did you come back and go right to work for the County Attorney's Office then?
I started working in the County Attorney's Office before I had even passed the bar. I'd just taken it. I showed up. My predecessor, I met with him. I wanted to touch base with him because I'd interned for him the previous summer. He said, "You want a job?" I said, "Sure." He gave me a job.
Okay, good deal.
I've been there ever since.
And what is it about the County Attorney's Office that draws your attention? I'm sure there's a lot of people who've worked there and have moved on to other things, but why is it the right fit for you?
I still like the challenge. I've always liked trying to solve the riddle of how you're going to take a person accused of a crime and work them through the constitutional process and get to a conviction. And so I still do that and still enjoy doing it.
All right. So when most of us think of the County Attorney's Office, we probably, think about some law drama on TV and the case gets solved in an hour, and that's just what it's like to work in your office, isn't it?
All the cases are solved in an hour. We get from arraignment all the way to sentencing within an hour. Yeah. No, the difference is it's a much slower pace. You got to be real careful. You're talking about a person's constitutional rights. You're accusing someone of a crime. You got to dot your I's and cross your T's, and that's what we try to do in my office.
Sure. Before we dive in a little bit deeper, so are you also officially the lawyer for Yellowstone County? Does that come with some responsibilities of your office outside of what we traditionally think of as the county attorney and what they do?
I am the lawyer for Yellowstone County. Okay. So we are a self-insured entity. So outside of the criminal realm, we have a civil division that's under my authorization, and we advise the commissioners, other county departments. If the Yellowstone County gets sued, we have to deal with those things.
All right. Is there times when you bring in outside counsel for that as well? There's just stuff that just happens so infrequently that somebody else has got to come in and work on
Very
this.
rarely.
Okay.
We have in the past, but it's very rare. We tend to do it ourselves.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So talk about what it is that mostly that your office does, the criminal side of things. What is it that the county attorney's office is largely charged with doing?
Well, obviously the obvious one is dealing with all the major criminal offenses in our community. We have a criminal division. That's where the bulk of my attorneys and staff deal with. We also do the child abuse and neglect cases. So if a child needs to be removed from a neglectful situation, we work with the state. We do all the court actions with regard to that, with regard to removal or reunification with the parents. Right. We also, like I said, we have a civil division that advises other county departments, helps them with things. It doesn't matter if it's the sheriff, it's a justice of the peace, or the treasurer. We're there to give them legal advice.
Give us just a quick overview. What is the difference between civil law and criminal law, and how do you divide them up in your office?
Well, obviously, our civil division is sort of set apart from the rest of our office. I have 4 attorneys full-time that work in the civil division with some staff. The difference between really civil and criminal is you're talking about your Bill of Rights and your Constitution and all those things that are triggered when you do that, and there's a process, due process. Civil can be anything from legal advice to zoning to a resolution in the county to defending the county if someone falls at the Metra and hurts themselves and wants to sue Yellowstone County. That's sort of the difference as I see it.
Okay, all right. And so talk to us about what a typical day is like in the criminal division at the county attorney's office, if there is such thing as a typical day. But what day in, day out, what are the things that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so give you today. Every day, first thing in the morning, law enforcement in this jurisdiction, any law enforcement can come and present a case that they want to have prosecuted. So, or they could come and present cases for arrests they made the night previous or the night prior to that, and we begin the process. We file the charging documents that get them into court and begin the process of prosecuting those individuals. After that, it's court hearings. We have obviously 8 district court judges, 8 district courtrooms, and we have 2 justices of the peace, which are courts of limited jurisdiction. We're constantly in those courtrooms all the time. Today we had arraignments, we had youth court transfer hearings, we had suppression hearings. Just there's an attorney somewhere in some court all the time.
So how do you manage your staff like that? Is there a time when everybody can be together in the same room, or do you kind of have to do that individually? And I know what this guy's doing, and I know what that guy's doing, and I know what this lady's doing. And how do you manage that?
We manage. We try to manage their case assignments. So if you're talking about individual attorneys, we manage their case assignments, and then we really try to monitor their calendars. Right now, we've actually switched the way we organize things in our office. Instead of just having a case assigned to an attorney and that attorney go deal with that case, we now assign attorneys to judges. So I have groups of attorneys that are assigned to district court judges, so they know which judges they appear in front of. That helps us because then what we can do is sync up with the district court's calendar so we know where we need to be at a certain time.
So then, do you kind of meet with those attorneys assigned to that judge kind of when they have an opening, and you kind of say, okay, how's it going? What's going on?
We
that
do
kind of stuff.
We do, and just like any big office, because we have quite a few folks in the office now, we'll have regular staff meetings. Mm-hmm. We might have a meeting, for legal assistance staff, or we might have a meeting for the criminal division, or we might have a meeting for the abuse and neglect division. But we continually have meetings with them to let them know what's going on,
sure,
to make sure they have everything they need, check their calendars, that kind of thing.
So how many folks do you have working in the county attorney's office?
Just checked it before today, 59
okay.
Full-time employees.
And then do you have kind of a breakdown of how many are attorneys, how many are support staff?
We have 26 attorneys.
Okay.
I believe that makes us the second largest law firm in the city. We have 23 staff, and the way we organize it, it just depends on which division you're talking about.
Sure. How does we touched on this a little bit, but I'm sure there's more to it. How does your office interact with the district court judges, and so that you're kind of in sync with them and what needs to be done? And like probably every judge is a little bit different and understanding what they want to see in their courtroom when they're in session.
Yeah, some of it you have to become familiar with that judge, how they like things done. But typically, as I said, we have attorneys assigned to those certain judges. We also have access to the judge's calendar, so we kind of know what's coming up. Our staff takes a tremendous amount of resource and time to coordinate everything to make sure we've got somebody in the right spot, in front of that judge when that judge wants us to be in front of them. And like I said, we're in front of them constantly. So that's a big thing. Calendaring and organizing our time is a big aspect of what I do as a county attorney.
Sure. How do you guys interact with the clerk of the court? The you know, kind of
The clerk's the record keeper.
Yeah, the record keeper. How do you guys interact with
So
them?
we file documents. When we file something, if we need to file a charging document, we file it with the clerk of court. They're the official record keeper for the district court. It's actually been now about a year and a half, 2 years, we've gone to e-filing or electronic filing, so we do it all electronically, and then it just all gets calendared. So we're still kind of working some of the kinks out in that with the clerk of court, but no, with Terry Halpin, that's our elected clerk of court, it's really a record-keeping process. Make sure our record is maintained, make sure that we have a record of this hearing happened when. That's all part of our role.
And then do you guys have access to, I think when she was on, she talked about the e-filing, but then you guys also having access to all of those documents electronically rather than having to go up there and here's what the defense attorney turned in or whatever.
Yeah, the advantage is you would be able to access it from your computer and see everything that's been filed in a particular case that's been assigned a number, absolutely. So that's one of the advantages of electronic filing.
Okay. And then how does your office interact with the public defender's office?
So obviously the public defender's office is required to represent folks that are indigent or can't afford counsel. When someone is charged with a crime, if they can't afford one will be appointed for them, right? The famous standard. And so we interact with them that way. So we work with them to resolve criminal cases. Most cases in Yellowstone County and in the criminal justice system in general are resolved through plea bargaining, through plea agreements, and we do that. So we work with the public defender's office on a daily basis. We also try cases with them when need be as well.
Okay. Have they gone to the same type of model that you have where they have certain attorneys that go to certain judges, or they still spread it out pretty good?
No, they've kind of sort of, I think, I don't want to say they followed our lead, but they've sort of done that as well. They have certain attorneys that are sort of assigned to certain judges.
So kind of the attorneys on their staff and attorneys on your staff starting to get a fair amount of overlap because they're going to the same place?
Yeah, and I think there's just so much work. There's a fair amount of overlap regardless. I mean, all of our attorneys are kind of familiar with all of the attorneys in the Office of the Public Defender.
All right. And then how does your office interact with law enforcement? It sounds like on a daily basis. Kind of what do those interactions look like?
Well, I pride myself and my office that we've positioned ourselves really well with law enforcement. I think law enforcement and our office work together very effectively in our community. Every day we're on the phone with each other, we're meeting with each other, we're talking, we're discussing policy changes, we understand that something that I do in my office can affect what they do and vice versa, and so we really try to keep that line of communication open all the time.
Do you guys ever do kind of trainings and stuff for them to say, you know, if you're out doing it, you need to do it this way because then we can prosecute it, versus if you do it this way, our hands are going to be tied. We're going to be in a tight spot.
Absolutely, we do that all the time. In fact, some of my attorneys have just gone out and done some trainings. One thing that happens in our world is the Supreme Court of Montana may come down with a decision that could affect police procedure, and we would be the ones to help them train on that to make sure they understand what the legal requirements are so they can do their job.
Okay. Speaking of the Supreme Court, do you ever have attorneys that end up having to go up to the Supreme Court because a case has gone that way, and how does it work through its system to that point?
So the way that functions generally in Montana is we have an appellate division that's through the Department of Justice under the auspices of the Attorney General. So Attorney General Fox has an appellate division, and they tend to do the appellate work for us. Okay. We work with them and coordinate with them in terms of like we might appeal something based on a decision that a district court judge made, or we might provide them information that they need so they can successfully defend an issue that came up in a case. So it just depends, but typically speaking, the appellate division is under the Department of Justice.
Okay. So talk to me about your relationship with the Attorney General's office then. I know you're an elected official in Yellowstone County, so it's not like the Attorney General controls who's in that position, but how do you interact with them? i.e., the reason that's interesting to me is I'm assuming that most of the statutes that you guys are prosecuting are state statutes, are things that the state of Montana has said is a crime versus Yellowstone County. So how does that relationship work?
Oh, really well. I mean, they have the appellate division, they have the prosecution services bureau, they also have a training coordinator that helps train prosecutors across the state. So they have those components. I'm part of the training committee myself because I'm part of the County Attorney Association for the state. So we work together really well. But primarily speaking, I'm responsible for making that decision of whether to bring the charge or not. The Attorney General can certainly assist or help or offer guidance, but it's my decision. And then when we get to the appellate level, if that's needed, then they take over for there.
Okay, so they're the ones that are going to be arguing in front of the Supreme Court. Is one of your prosecutors usually with them at that point?
It can be. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
The Tipton case, which was a sort of a big case for us, that we went and argued. We went and argued at Law Day. The chief of the appellate division argued it, but I went and was with him for that argument.
Okay, all right. And then how does your office relate to the county commissioner's office? Again, you're an elected official, they're elected officials, so how does that interaction usually work?
Well, my civil division, one of the big aspects of their job is to advise the county commission. Okay. They're literally meeting with them on a weekly, if not daily basis, answering any questions they would have.
Sure.
As an elected official, I'm beholden to the residents of this community, right? Mm-hmm. They're my boss. Yeah. But the county commission has authority over my employees to some extent. They also have authority over policies in the county that I would be, or my employees would be responsible for following, and they have control over my budget, right? Mm-hmm. as the county commission. So, but our interactions with Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Pittman, or Commissioner Austin have been great. I'm the legal advisor to them as well, sure. So they rely on my guidance a lot before they take action in a lot of aspects.
All right, let's swing back a little bit, and I want to touch about. Okay, you said law enforcement's out, they arrest somebody, they come to you and say, we arrested them for this charge. We would like you to prosecute. Walk us through the steps from that point. How do you decide to do it, and then what are the next steps once you say yay or nay?
Okay. Well, if a law enforcement officer has decided to make an arrest of an individual, they have to have probable cause, and sometimes that's obvious, like running out of the bank with a gun and a sack full of money, right. And they arrest them, right? Yeah. Well, to use that as an example, at that point, then it would be presented to our office. The constitutional clock, as I call it, is running, so they have to be seen by a neutral, detached magistrate within a certain period of time. So, under Montana law, we would take the information that the officers give us about the reason they made the arrest, their reports and things, and we would write a complaint or an information bringing that person into court so they could be seen by the judge. And then the judge is going to look at our charging documents, which is going to be essentially have an affidavit that's going to paraphrase what the law enforcement officer did. And they're going to say, okay, I find probable cause that you did this offense. I'm going to allow the prosecution to proceed, and away we go. That's how it starts. The determination I make is based on the constitutional standard of probable cause. That's the constitutional standard. I got to have probable cause to file charges. Mm-hmm. There's also another ethical standard that a prosecutor has to follow, and I require my prosecutors to follow. Not only do they have to follow the probable cause standard, but the higher ethical standard that a prosecutor has to follow is that they believe in their mind, based on what they're looking at, that there would be a reasonable likelihood of success at trial, meaning a conviction. So they kind of look at that as an ethical standard, even though the constitutional standard is only probable cause. Okay.
And so how often do they say, yep, we need to move forward with this, or to say, this is a little iffy. I'm not going to move forward with that.
So most of the determinations there are done at my office level. Okay. One thing people don't see is there could be cases that the officer didn't make an arrest. Maybe it's a case that's required some investigation, something, and they'll put together what they have and they'll give it to us. We call that a review, mm-hmm. or a case for review. We'll look at it. In a certain case, we don't feel there's probable cause, or we don't feel that we have a likelihood of success. We'll reject it, and we reject quite a few cases. That's what people don't see, but that's part of our job. We have to be sort of that filter to see if we have probable cause or not.
Sure. And then how does that usually go? With law enforcement, are they there advocating that you do this, or are they pretty good about, that's your decision, you decide?
They're a participant in how we come to that decision. So there are cases that I have declined to prosecute that have been, I guess, controversial mm-hmm. in the community or what have you. And I tend to write out, or my attorneys tend to write out lengthy memos with their rationale for this. and we provide those back to the law enforcement agency. And so they might have comments on that, or they might say, oh, okay, I agree with you, or whatever. And sometimes they disagree as well, but that's my decision. I'm the elected official. So.
And do you do that for all of them? I mean, is as low as, hey, that guy probably was drinking a little bit too much on Friday night, but that dashboard cam probably isn't the greatest, and there's some other I mean, does that come to your office too, or do you have prosecutors who are well seasoned in DUI and say, yes, I can make this stick, no, there's no way I'm going to make that stick?
Yeah, again, it depends on the case.
Yeah.
It's case by case. In the area of DUI, it's almost, I hesitate to say this, but it's almost formulaic. The officers are pretty good about knowing what they need. And we set kind of a standard too. So they know from maybe that case we rejected, that there's something lacking. So they know to either provide that or look for that. And so they learn and they become better officers for it as well.
Okay, all right. Have you had a chance to, it sounds like you're on the county, pretty involved with the County Attorneys Association. Have you had a chance to kind of sit down with some of the other county attorneys from the larger counties in Montana, compare notes? What do you guys do the same? What do you do differently? And what have you found when you do that?
Oh, I do that all the time. In fact, I've got board meetings coming up. We're going to go meet in Miles City here. But no, absolutely all the time. We share ideas, share notes. Every office is a little bit different in terms of how they process things. Obviously, there's certain standards, like the probable cause standard, and things that are the same. I think what I've found out is, well, one, our office is really busy. Even in comparison to our next largest community, which is Missoula, we do about double what they do here.
Sure.
So it's a lot of work. One of the things that we do as a County Attorney Association is we really have started to work on legislation that we would think would be beneficial for our residents and our community members. Sure. Like you talk about DUI.
Yeah.
I got Representative Mercer here locally last legislative session to sponsor a DUI bill, because I think based on some changes that happened in the law, there were some holes in how we can deal with the repeat DUI offender. So the County Attorney Association really works on those issues. We were looking at, and we're still looking at, a drug diversion program, sort of to limit the number of resources we keep throwing at these drug cases and find a way to better utilize our limited resources. We've done, we tried to bring back stiffer penalties for child rapists, things like that. So that's really what the County Attorney Association, at least my role in the County Attorney Association, is. There's also a training component as well, where somebody who has got more experience, we try to help train some of the prosecutors in all the jurisdictions across the state, maybe get them some better training, get them some better understanding of how to successfully prosecute certain cases.
Okay, so like how big is the Missoula County's Attorney's Office, and maybe Bozeman, Great Falls? Are they half the size of yours with the same amount of cases, or is it comparable size-wise?
So the last full time that I checked in comparison to Missoula was several years ago, and they had just maybe a few fewer folks than we had in our office. But we had quite a bit more cases filed.
Do you know what the judge comparison is between Yellowstone County and Missoula County?
I believe Missoula is at 5 judges now. Okay. They just got a new judge.
I think they got one. When we got 2, they got 1. Does that sound right?
They got 1 right before we got the 2 to make it up to 5. They have 5.
All right. Besides the DUI bill you talked about, how active are you at the legislature every couple of years? And is it really through the County Attorneys Association, or do you bring stuff that's just Yellowstone County specific as well? So
I tend to try to limit what I do as far as advocating at the legislature for certain laws that I think would be beneficial. I do a lot of, I get a lot of calls from legislators on criminal issues and other issues that could be affecting local. I work with the commission, Montana Association of Counties. I work with city governments, because a lot of the stuff that we're interested in, sort of overlaps. So I'm active in that regard. As far as actually going up and testifying and doing the things that I need to do, I try to be laser focused on 1 or 2 bills, just because I want my message to be very clear.
Okay. All right. Having been in the county's attorney's office for a while now, if you could change one thing, or maybe a handful of things, what are some of the things that you could change that maybe they're outside of your control and you can't change them, but you would like to see that happen?
Oh, there's always something. A couple things that we're working on is we got to continue to get efficient. We just have so many things coming in, and we got to continue to get efficient. We're dragging ourselves kicking and screaming to going paperless, completely paperless, which I think once you get past the initial hump of how to do that. It can be very efficient and save us some time, so that's one thing. The other thing too that I just recently started, we've been trying a lot of cases in the district court lately. I think that we need to upgrade our trial presentation software, whether it's better monitors or better projectors for our limited space in our courtrooms. We need to present better to the jury, and so that's what we're working on.
All right. Serving as the county attorney, I know you served in the county attorney's office for quite a while before you became the county attorney. What difference did you see when you actually became that elected person versus, hey, I'm one of the guys here and I'm part of this office, but I'm not running the office?
I think the biggest change, and I've sort of reflected on this since I've been county attorney now in my third term. I don't have as much time to dedicate to like individual cases as that I normally would like to. I can't have that traditional caseload. I'm at the point now where I'm really just making sure that my folks, all the employees for me, have the tools they need to successfully do their job, the management of that. That's the part that's really changed for me as the county attorney. It's just really, you got to be, it's almost, I always call it, you got to have like cocktail party knowledge of what's going on. You can't have like really in-depth knowledge of what all the cases are like you would when you had a caseload, but you got to kind of have an idea of what everybody's doing so you can understand what they need.
Okay. All right. What's the biggest surprise you've encountered since becoming the elected county attorney?
Biggest surprise is a good question. Probably the biggest surprise is when I became county attorney, I had been in the office for about 12 years and had done just about everything in that job. Sure. I think the biggest surprise to me though was like not every day, but like every week, there's just some new novel surprise, some issue that I would never have thought of in like 100 years. This comes up and they looked to our office to deal with it. And the other big surprise for me is how involved the county attorney's operation is in all aspects of our community. We really are involved in just about everything. It doesn't matter if it's a jail issue, a city council issue, a school issue. We're just kind of involved in it.
All right. Gaze into your crystal ball a little bit. What do you see coming to the county attorney's office next 3 to 5 years? Big changes, small changes. What do you see on the horizon for what your office is going to be dealing with?
Well, the one thing that's kind of frightening is the amount of workload increase that we've seen over the last 5-6 years. It just, it's pretty astonishing how much our workload has gone up. One of the things that I'd really like to do now that we've got the 2 new judicial departments in place is like a permanent physical location for my office. One of the challenges that I have is I'm kind of scattered all over the courthouse with my offices, and that makes for some difficult management issues. The commissioners have been great giving me the space I need, but I think the county attorney's office moving forward needs to have a more stable footprint wherever that is, so it can be managed and be ready for this workload that continues to increase.
All right. Well, Scott, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a great conversation, an interesting conversation, and thanks for all you do and all your prosecutors do. I know you're working every day to keep us safe, so thank you very much.
I hope I didn't bore you to death.
You certainly didn't.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.